Well, this doesn't look like a barn to me. It's a special barn for our friend Jeff. He's an atdrafting.com customer and also hopefully an artisan construction customer. But we're in the design phases right now with this project, and hopefully this is a local project, so hopefully we will get to build this too. But what we do with that is we provide the design services first, and then if he doesn't like our budget for the project, he can use these drawings that will be printable, and we'll get to that as soon as the design is done. As soon as the model is done and he's happy with it, then we move on to setting up our sheets and all that. So this is a video for him to review, and I just like to share these things with my YouTube viewers. So like I said, this is a little bit different of a barn, and I've always actually wanted to do one like this where you have a normal foundation where you're not sitting the barn right on the ground and you're like, well, where's the ground? But first, let me explain what I'm doing with this. I'm putting into the budget, or at least one step in the footing in case our site is not perfectly level. So if we do get it graded perfectly level and we don't need a step down in the footing, then this foundation will be cheaper. So that's the point of that. I'm kind of assuming it's going to have maybe at least an 8-inch fall over. I mean, this is like 80 feet. This is a big barn, okay? It's 40 feet by 60 feet. When I say big, I'm talking about for, typical barns for this type of use. But anyway, let's turn on the grade here. That's kind of where I'm assuming the grade might end up. Again, if it ends up being perfectly level, which you don't necessarily want, you want at least the grade around your building to slope away from the building a little bit. But that would be our budgeted grade or our estimated grade. And then so that would allow us to have our barn up out of the ground. Okay, you see a lot of these people that make barns that are for just typical livestock uses. They'll just pour footings in the ground and the post will come right down to the ground, and there's really no way to seal out critters, and you're going to see that in a minute. So the next thing let's look at are the bents. And those are here, which is our superstructure for the barn. The actual bents are these individual bays of timbers here, like that. And I'm looking at possibly actually stick building these because they're so large. And I talked to my crane guy. I actually had him watch the video. This is why we do videos. I can send them to people and say, look at this driveway. Look how far it is. Look at the condition. Can you get a 50-foot boom truck, back? And he's thinking about it right now, but I've got this plan B in my head where we would literally just stick build these bents. So we would put our 4 posts up, then we would put our beams on, these horizontal beams, and we would do that all the way across. And then we would sort of make this a temporary platform if he didn't want to put the joist in here. If he does want to put the joist in here, we would go ahead and put them up. Then we would have a platform to work off to set these 2 posts on each bent, this one and this one. We would mount this beam. And of course, we could possibly mount this beam to the post on the platform we would build and then raise it up. And then once we got all that second story platform built, then the rest of it's kind of easy because this is only, is it 6 feet tall? Yeah, 6'6", but easily easily managed by then. The after looking at the site, I mean, it's funny about cranes. You know, these cranes can be huge. Okay, let's go look at a 50-foot boom crane. You can see these things can get large, and the company that I use has a truck that's even bigger than this. So it's more like this big thing. Yeah. So, and they have different trucks, but we'll look at this, and of course, for the cost of the truck for a day, you know, this is the kind of thing you have to decide. Do you want to pay $1,000 for one day, or maybe $1,000 for 2 days for a crew to be able to, you know, in other words, the cost may end up being close to the same as far as the labor. Because even if we build these bents on the ground like you would traditionally and stack them up, you still have the labor of that. So anyway, that's just, and this is information for the owner to be thinking about. So once we have our superstructure up, we would have these intermediate rafters. Where's my rafters? There we go. And what those are going to do is just support the purlins, because, you know, 2x4 purlin won't span 10 feet. You'd be like a trampoline in the middle of the span. If you ever had to walk on the roof. Of course, you can't walk on this roof, but that's just a medium density framing method to support the purlins, which I'm going to turn on next. Roof purlins. There we go. So you can see they form the structure for the roofing to sit on. And then let's just go ahead and turn on our roofing, which I'm showing just a 5V metal, you know, 10, that typical metal. And then you have your edge flashing to cover up the edges. I'm going to come up with a detail up here where there's a piece of metal that comes out and laps over this lower piece at least 3 or 4 inches, and then this roof goes on top of that. That would be your connection between I don't have that shown yet. I got to put that in there, and I also have to put the roof cap on, which is just a bent piece of metal that sits on top and gets screwed down. Okay. And then we have this kind of neat detail. I've always liked this, where part of the roof, and it's mainly, I've always thought this was to protect the door below. Let's turn on if I can get my scrolling going good here. Let's turn on the studs. So the studs are kind of the same thing as the purlins. They just form sort of a backdrop for the horizontal purlins for the siding. And they're still, they're spaced out pretty good. It's not like we've gone in there and put them on 2-foot centers. I think they're on like 3-foot centers. It's just enough to keep your siding from, being wanky. But the reason I wanted to turn them on now is to show you this 10-foot door and how this extra overhang up here, get it at an angle where you can see it. It may need to come out, may need to run it out another foot. I think it's sticking out 3 feet right now. They want this barn to be good and weatherproof, for almost like a situation where you could build part of it out to live in. And that's why I have the foundation the way it is, because now, since you have this nice foundation, your siding, let me turn on my side purlins. These, that's why I had the structure set back 1.5 inches. These purlins can come down and they're flush with the foundation. Okay, and then of course, again, you see them running on 2-foot centers. We got the roofing. The roof purlins can be on 3-foot centers, but I think this, if we're going to have board and batten, we need the horizontal, the siding purlins to be on 2-foot centers, which actually works out pretty good because you got a 10-foot door, and one comes right to the top of the door, and it worked out pretty good. Helps form the opening for the door. And then of course we would have our board and batten siding. They want to see what the cost is of real wood, so, which is cool. Siding, there we go. Now you would have, and I don't really like this hatch pattern I found for the board and batten, but it looks too, but that's part of the nature of hatch patterns. They repeat, so that's why you have these repeating patterns on here. Just need to make the pattern bigger so it doesn't repeat so often. But these lines coming across here would be, that would be your 10-foot boards. So 10-foot boards would go all the way up on the sides, but you would have, and at that line you would just have a row of like Z flashing behind the battens. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get, obviously get boards long enough to cover this whole front, so it's best to plan it out ahead of time, where it makes sense just to stop them at the door height and then go another 10 feet and then finish it out like that. And then our doors, we need to come up, I was going to put a sliding, like a typical barn door, but if you ever want to weatherize this thing in the future, you would be better off having hinged. I don't have the hinges shown yet, but just two leaves, two big leaves that would swing out around these doors. You can weatherproof them better. A big barn door that just slides back and forth. I don't know if if you're not familiar with those, they're not, you can't weatherproof them. The track for the door makes the door hang out away. Obviously it has to clear the battens, so when you close the door, there's a big gap around it. And they're meant for just barns, like you keep animals or hay in. So that would determine what type of door you use. And of course, in a lot of barns you'll see like a loft door up here, and that was a question. You'll see like a pulley up here and a rope, and they use that for loading the loft with hay and stuff. But we would need to decide if you want that look. Let's turn off the siding for a second and see. But it would be, it would be right about here, maybe between these two studs or something like that, because you got your bent structure, so that would act as the header for the opening. So actually it would be that line right there. That would be the top of the door, and then you just decide how wide you want it to be, if you want one. I show a door on the back too. I don't know if you want a door on the back of the barn, or it seems like it would be handy. So anyway, that's where we stand now. So what I'm going to do this week is we'll get prices on all this, and let's turn our siding off. What I'm going to do first is I'll turn on the foundation. My foundation contractor is going to price this, and then I'll do a material takeoff on all the heavy timbers, because that's a different supplier for the heavy timbers. And then I can just get the regular framing lumber, these rafters and stuff like that, wherever my typical lumber yard that gives me good prices. And I'll try to get all this taken care of this coming week, and hopefully by the end of the week we'll have your budget wrapped up. And I'll have I'll make another video where I start to set up views, and what you do is you just set up different views, like that would be the front, at the front, yeah, and then you turn it to parallel projection like that, and then you use a different style. I like to use this style when I'm modeling because it's easy on the eyes. When I start doing construction drawings, there'll be something more generic like that. And that's what you typically see. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and save this as front elevation scenes. So what we do here is we just add a scene. Let's see, front elevation. I usually just abbreviate elevation like that. I go over here and I'll say update. Okay, and then I will go to the side. See, here you can see the vents, the rafters. We'll kind of set that view up. What is that? Oh, I always got to turn the model axis off. I don't like that, and I haven't saved that yet. So there we go, and that would be, oops. That's the difference in, I accidentally clicked on parallel projection. Perspective. And then, but for construction drawings, it should look like that. And that's, contractors are used to looking at boring drawings like that. So this would be, we're going to call this typical side because they would be the same. Let's call it side elevation. Okay, and we'll update that. See, then we can just flip back and forth to those, and then we would have first we would have let's go to a top view, and did I have it turned that way? I guess I did, but I'll go and turn off the rafters for the foundation plan. Anyway, we would do it like this. Okay, so that would be your foundation plan, and that would go up first. Oops. So I moved it over there. And so on. So I won't bore you with that whole thing. But then what I usually do is I will have one called working. Did I update that? Let me update that. Make sure. And then, or I'll just call it work. And the work view is just all the layers turned on. And in like a perspective mode, and then it would be perspective. And it's kind of like how I was showing in the video, and then it would be this style. Yeah, it would be this one, and this would be kind of my working. It would just turns all the layers back on. So where did I do it? Right there. Oh, I see. And it goes down at the end, and then update that. So then I can just flip back and forth like that. But I don't use those views to work on it. So I use this one. Okay, well, that is enough for now on this project. Jeff, if you don't mind, let me know what you think about all of this, and we will try to wrap up your budget and drawings by the end of this week. Thanks for watching, guys.